We have President Trump still attacking Fed Powell, saying he's a loser, that he needs to cut rates, that he doesn't know what he's doing and needs to be fired from his job immediately. Now, we know, if you don't know, we talked about it last week in Stock Market Sundays, and we're just saying that he doesn't have the control to do so as of yet. But he keeps pressing this issue, which is driving the market uncertainty to the downside, as we saw today. We broke some key levels on the charts that we want to go over, as well as some other fundamental news articles that are driving the market lower. And we just got a whole lot going on. So in today's video, I want to go over each fundamental news article that is affecting the market downside, some earnings that may potentially spur us higher. So we do want to be prepared for that, as well as just the general charts and ideas so you can stay liquid, stay cash heavy, make money with trading, and also continuously buy the dip on the downside, and you know the levels of where we're headed. All right. Without further ado, welcome to the channel. For those that are new, my name is Dr. B. I'm a holistic life and business coach and strategist for entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I've been an options trader for the last 6 going on 7 years. Dabble in the futures market, getting back into it as there's a lot of opportunity there, and we'll present some opportunities for you here as you continue to watch the video. All right. Without further ado, check the links down below and let's jump into the value for today. All right, so you can see that the market futures are up after we had the downside sell-off today, which is normal, okay? So futures rise after stocks tank on Trump's latest jab at the Fed and Fed Powell in specific. Okay, Trump ramps up his attacks on Powell and demands the loser Fed Powell chair lower rates right now. Now, for those that don't know how this affects the market, right? Fed Powell, give you a brief update. Fed Powell has essentially said, hey, we can't cut any rates. There's no data to say that we should dramatically cut rates now. If we do, just because you said so, President Trump, we could spiral down into further stagflation. We could go into a deeper recession, as we already probably are in, as y'all know, and a potential Great Depression, okay? So he's standing firm in his decision saying, hey, I've been doing this for a while. It may not be the decision that y'all like, but I need to make executive decisions based on the data that we know, right? I can't just do it just because you said so, all right? Now, alternatively, if he were to be fired, okay, now that would be historical, all right, if that were to happen. If that were to happen, that would send the market in a complete downside spiraling move, all right? That is not good at all, to have no control over the Fed and no leadership in the Fed. And now you have President Trump essentially running everything, which is not a confidence booster for investors and the economy in general. Okay, so it's not a good thing either way, right? But there is a better half and a quote unquote stagnant half that you can just sit there and say, hey, we would rather just pause the rates and continue where we are, versus you keep coming and jabbing at him, and now we don't have a chairman, quote unquote, in the Fed, right? So that's what's happening, that's spurring the market a little bit lower. But we also have 30-year yields that are, the higher the yield, okay, this is a US 10-year, okay, we have 30-year yield rising, okay, this morning, as well as the US dollar that is falling in value. So all of those, like as a trifecta together, are spurring the market into a, continued downside, right? Now, this is all fundamental news. I don't care what's spurring it or not. We'll see when we get on the charts. I focus on primarily the technical analysis, i.e. the charts. If you've not gone and checked out a charting video, awesome video in my opinion, got a lot of good feedback from it. That is where we make primarily most of our decisions. And then we pay attention to the news and the fundamentals, right? And the headlines that may kind of continue or move the market in one way or the other, okay? Now, the only thing right now, as I've said previously, that can really save this market in the short term, right? Long term will be fine. But I'm talking about for those that are like, hey, where are we headed? I'm getting really concerned. Is NVIDIA coming lower? Another 10% drop? We don't know, right? The only thing, in my opinion, right now that can save is one, earnings. In some form or fashion, tech earnings that are coming out primarily next week. We have Tesla after hours tomorrow, and we have Google at the end of the week on Thursday after hours. If we start having good tech earnings, then yes, we can rebound. The second way is if President Trump comes out and just says, hey, we need to say something good, because they're getting a little bit too panicky. We need to say something good again, and then we'll spur it higher, all right? Just to keep everyone sane, right? So that is my kind of sentiment and feeling in the market right now. Okay. And as for my traders, right, we need to have level to level of where we're going each and every day and how the week is looking, the outlook for the remainder of the month. And we just started a new quarter as well. Okay. For my long term investors, it's not that difficult, in my opinion. Dollar cost average down, put it on recurring buy if you have cash on hand, right? And if you want to learn a little bit more, watch my stock chart video and find specific levels on the charts where you can add in a little bit heavier. All right, we good? Now let's go through a couple more. China warns against countermeasures that any deals that harms its interests. So China is not backing down either. So there's still this trade war going between the top two economies saying, hey, you want to raise tariffs on us? Great. You need us. We'll raise tariffs on you. And if anyone else wants to go on any deals and goes against us and wants to side with the US and wants to, harm our interest here in our economy, then we're not backing down from y'all either. Okay. So you got all this spurred around, and it's creating some great trading opportunities to the downside to hedge your portfolio and to generate income, right? And also it's creating better dip buy opportunities for those that have been waiting on getting into the markets at some form or fashion. These are the opportunities that you have been praying for and wishing for if you had just never been involved, right? And it can be a scary thing for those that are fairly new. All right. So let's jump into a couple other headlines really quick, and then I want to jump into the charts where all the money is. All right. US will have a recession in 2025s if high tariffs stay, and the tariffs have not even been intact yet. So we still have more to go. They've not fully been implemented. We don't know the outcome of them. Right. And then we have earnings that are coming up. Okay. So let's go into a couple of trades that we had today, and then I'll jump on the charts. And before we do, just make sure you check the links down below. There's a special going on for the futures market. I believe personally, and this is just unbiased. You don't have to use my link. You don't even have to use the code. You don't have to use anything. Just look it up. Okay. I've traded Top Step futures. You can go check out that video of me passing a 150K account. We've got experienced futures traders in our community that have taken pretty large payouts. They trade more primarily futures. I trade primarily options along with futures. I look at NQ and ES. And if you want to learn how to trade futures, right, that may be a little bit simpler for you without having to invest a lot of money, you can check out Top One Futures, because you can go straight to funded. Okay. If you know, that means you don't have to pass a challenge. That means you can get immediate funding into a futures account and start earning payouts, obviously understanding how to trade. Okay. So I've been telling my community this. I primarily teach and educate on the option side, but I educate on futures levels as well, so people can understand how that goes. So make sure you lock in this. If you want to use my code, it's Dr. B. It helps out the channel, and it's available until the end of the month. That could change, but 50% off all accounts. And here's how it looks. Okay. So if you want to do a 100K account, they have different account sizes. If I go back here, okay, here it is, instant sim funded. Okay. You can do the 50K, 100K, 150K, right? And I would primarily look at the funded account, so you don't have to go through a challenge, and there's no monthly fee, no nothing. Okay. So if I type in, just say a 50K account, let's do that. And then we type in the code there, and there you go. So straight to funded, $300, and then you can start earning payouts in 5 days or 14 days. All right. If you want to learn more about that, tap in. But if you know, I think it's an amazing, amazing platform personally, because it has the platform that I love, which is Project X, very similar to Top Step X. And we'll go from there. All right. So I know I have a lot of beginners. That can be a mouthful. If you have any questions, ask below, and I'll get to you before the end of the month. But if take advantage of this deal and use the code. We'd highly appreciate it. All right. Let's go into our trades for the day. Shout out some community members for their wins. Okay. So just scrolling through our wins here. Okay. IWM, 50% win there. Beautiful. Congrats, streamer. Today is now my biggest day of almost $400 so far. Thanks, Dr. B. I can get used to this. Awesome job. You did all the work. You put in the work, you put in the education, you ask questions, and you are benefiting from it. All right. So I don't take any credit other than just to present the information, and then you become your own investor, your own trader, and you go from there. $400. If y'all don't know, based on the trading days of the month, that generates roughly 7 to 8 grand if you're consistent. Right. So just dumb that down a little bit and just say you have a couple of losing days. You're talking about 3 to 5 grand on the low end if you generate that 100 to potentially $400 per day on average. All right. So this is, pretty good money for some folks that just do it on the side. They can do it while they have a job on the go. You do not need to be in front of a screen all the time, right? I have people in here in my community that are primarily professionals, full-time entrepreneurs, part-time entrepreneurs, thought leaders, speakers that just want a little extra income, right? Or to learn a skill set that they can generate that. All right. So there we go. Beautiful. All these were not only live trading where I was taking them as well, but also the way that I do it, I educate here on the full trade. So here's a beautiful IWM trade that was the end of the day that I marked it here, right? Took it off that 180 that was also off of 5100 SPX. So a lot of correlation, a lot of congruence that we found support at the end of the day. Shorts were out of their positions. Everyone started exiting all their puts, which initiated a short squeeze. And I had these fib levels back to the upside. Target was right there at that VWAP. And I'm going to go straight to how the chart looked at the end of the day. Beautiful trade, right to the target. Very little drawdown, if at any. Okay. The other trade that we took today was NVIDIA. Okay. That happened pretty quick. Watching for put starters around 100 with another potential add at 103. I gave this signal, the contracts there to consider. Now, I have a lot of people that are busy, right? So I'm doing this live trading inside of my Discord here, right? So you can follow my charts. I have my screen shared, all those things. But I do have some people that aren't able to be in a live trading. So they do benefit, if they know what they're doing, from these entries that we have here, all right? NVIDIA to a T, congrats. There's the trade idea right there. Beautiful. Working out perfectly, as well as Palantir that I caught and top ticked right at 96. Saw a failure right there, opened up that next hourly candle, okay, right there, and then just started falling straight to our 91 target. And there we go. I was updating 60, 70%, 85%. We were in runners and finally took all the profit out at 91. So you do the math. Even if you would have got in, a little bit late and you got 20, 30% on your money, if you put $100 in, there's a quick $30. There's lunch. If you put $1,000 in and you stopped out at 30% profit, there's $300. And we had roughly 50 to 70% that we left some runners in to go. So there you go, right? $1,000, there's your $500, $600, $700 in profit. If you had $500, there's your $300, $400, $500 in profit. You get my drift? So you do not have to use a lot of money as long as the trades are solid and there's a specific trade plan that you're following and you understand what we're doing. Now, all these were talked about on our Stock Sermon Sundays. So you didn't even have to be in our Discord, right, to take these trades. Right? That is what I'm primarily, I don't want to gatekeep. I just have to gatekeep a little bit simply because there's distractions, right? So that's the only reason I have a private Discord is because there's distractions when you are live trading, and I like to live trade to stay accountable, right? But if there's distractions, I like to have gate kept just to have serious folks that want to actually learn how to trade, actually be involved and learn, right? But I talked about all these trade ideas. I talked about this watch list on Stock Sermon Sundays. And if you took any of those trades, there's the full watch list I posted before market open, about 30 minutes, gave all the levels that we were watching, right? And all these worked out to perfection, okay? So it's not really the idea. It's primarily probably the execution. Like, how do you enter a trade, right? Where do I enter the trade? I entered the same trade as you, Dr. B, and I lost, right? It's about entries and exits and understanding how this plays out, right? So that's the only thing that I believe that's a benefit of being in some type of community. It doesn't matter who's or where, but the fact that you're learning and you're educating yourself. All right. So just want to show that there about how the full trade was played out. Okay. And I do record the trading trainings for my community as well to give them a trade review over the trade that we took. So if you want to learn, like, why did he take that IWM call, or how did he get into Palantir and NVIDIA puts, right? So shout out to everybody that took those trades. Now let's jump into what we've got for tomorrow and the idea. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is jump on SPY. Okay. And I want you to pay attention for those that watch my Stock Sermon Sundays, the market analysis. This played out to perfection. We were talking about this 520 level. Now, what we did pre-market is we gapped down underneath, which was an idea I was looking for. Is we gapped down underneath 520 pre-market. Okay. For those that don't know or are not used to this, okay, the light gray area is pre-market or after hours. The dark black area is when the market is actually open. So all this light gray area is what was happening before the New York session market open was happening. Okay. So I saw this pre-market, and then we were failing back up into it. And that is essentially a break and a retest to go lower. Okay. Very clean right there. Once we saw that failure underneath 520, okay, got into the 519s, it was pretty much gone. And if you look back at my Stock Sermon Sundays, I said the next level is 510. There's nothing but room back to this 510. And if you look left, it just repeated this move back to 510. And that's exactly where we saw it stop, which was 5,100 on SPX, a nice round psychological level. Okay. So with that being said, what are we looking out for tomorrow? We do have this gap here. Now, as always, with this type of market, you want to be open-minded. So Brian, does that mean we're going to trade puts again tomorrow? Maybe, right? You have to be open-minded in a very volatile market like this, when this very news correlated, when Trump's saying something, he's not saying something. We trade the charts, but I'm watching the levels of how it reacts. Okay. So we had this gap, right? Now, we could not get any momentum to start filling the gap back up to come down lower. That was the main trade I was looking for, is I was looking for kind of a gap fill reversal, which would have been more like this. Like that. Okay. That's what I was really looking for, is a pop up into that gap fill, form a lower high, and then continue lower. All right. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to be looking roughly at the same area, but I might want to give the market just a little bit of room, just because we had a little bit of a short squeeze towards the end of the day where all the shorts were exiting their position. Okay. And we're getting this squeeze, and we may have a little buyers step back in, and some shorts may be stopped out if they swung any puts overnight. And we could have the futures market rebounding a little bit. So I want to give it a little bit of room up into 520 again, and potentially up into that 525. Okay. So sometimes the full gap doesn't get filled all the way. So I want to be mindful that we could just stop in the middle of a gap and could come back up into this area tomorrow. Maybe it squeezes up into there, forms a lower high, and then I'm looking for that again. Okay. I'm still not confident personally in the upside. All right. The only upside I would really be looking for is if we somehow just, Trump comes out of nowhere and says, hey, we make a deal or whatever, we get above that 530, 531 area, that yellow line that you see. We got to get above there and push back into 535, and that would present some type of opportunity there. Okay. But otherwise, I'm still looking for puts, short side, trading the downside for trading purposes. Now, long-term investors, this is not really applicable to you other than just dollar cost average, buy the dip and expect lower. All right. That's not a difficult thing to do right now. But when trading comes and you're wondering, hey, how does this help me as a long-term investor? Right. You can start looking at market structure. Market structure is showing us lower highs and lower lows. Okay. Like it has been. The trend has not changed. Lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower lows, and forming potentially another retest and a lower low like that. Okay. So trade the trend, follow the trend. Don't expect any type of timing the bottom or, hey, this is it. Right. Especially for a lot of long-term investors that don't know the charts or aren't reading the charts, is every day you're like, today's a day. Okay. It could be. Right. But we don't guess as technical investors or technical traders, because we have the charts to confirm our analysis. All right. So I don't have to guess. I just wake up every day, chart my levels, look at the levels, watch the trend and say, cool, we've broken back above, we've reclaimed, we formed a higher low. Great. We can go up higher. That's fine. But right now, the whole sentiment, like I was saying earlier, is the only thing I believe is going to spur us higher, that, kind of like Trump did here, that little Trump pump, as I've called it, is he says something crazy again in a good light, or the earnings, just all the earnings come out with a super beat. Everyone mentions his AI. Everyone says our numbers are good, that tariffs aren't going to affect us. So we've made a deal, and everyone, Meta, Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, Google, all of them, everyone comes out with positive earnings, and we just shoot back to the upside. right? So that's all I'm watching is coming into earnings season, how we react with the earnings. But before the earnings come in, I do believe that we will continue this trend until probably the end of the week, unless something else changes, which we'll update here on the channel. All right. So tomorrow, in summary, watch this level of 525. Also mark 520. As long as we're below 520, we are weak. Okay. Below 520, we are weak. On ES for my futures folks, that is 5250. All right, 5250, we are weak. Okay, so watch that 5250. If we reclaim 5250, we could squeeze a little bit higher back up into that 5300, which will be right at that level on SPY that I was talking about, which would be roughly around 526, 527. Okay, so I am watching that on the futures market, associating it with SPY, seeing where we are back up into this 520 to 525 zone. Okay, it's a very wide zone here, as you see. Right, the higher it goes, the more I like the put side, but I am prepared to reject it if it does decide to turn this into another rejection zone. Okay, so we'll just watch the price action for those that are inside Leverage University. If you are an experienced trader and you trade on your own, watch the price action at those levels. If it shows weakness, you can potentially have some type of trade idea that forms like this on your respective stocks and the market. All right. Okay. All right. QQQ. Same idea here. Obviously, tech is fairly weak. The NASDAQ fairly weak, a little bit weaker than SPY, as you can see. Right there at that 441 to 443. Okay. So I've got that top end level. I want to mark that bottom low as well, which is right here. And I want to watch this 438 that we broke below today confidently. Can we retest 438? And can we squeeze a little bit higher where we wanted to really retest, which was Thursday's lows, right around 443? And if we can get up a little bit higher, I may watch those top end levels of 446. All right. So we'll be watching that as well. A lot of resistance overhead, as you can see right there, big wick right underneath 450, big wick underneath 450. There's a previous low right there, 447. So all up in this zone is just pop and fade right now. All up in this zone is all rejections. It's all a ceiling. Okay. All a ceiling for right now. Okay. So please be careful if you're trying to time the bottom, unless you are having long calls all the way out into the end of the year, or you know what you want to take a risk and go ahead and try to time this bottom. And if it goes, great. That's your prerogative. Okay. But right now we are in a downtrend. We're trading that trend and we're trading the levels. All right. So there you go. The bottom of the range. I'm really looking, if we get even worse this week and the earnings come in poor, Tesla or something, I'm really looking at something like that throughout the remainder of the week. Okay. We got consumer sentiment and PMI on Wednesday, consumer sentiment on Friday, PMI on Wednesday. So some key data reports that are coming out for inflation purposes, and Powell's not backing down on saying, hey, we're not cutting any rates anytime soon. All right. IWM, same type of lower high. Just try to find a lower high here underneath 185. Okay. Pushes up into that 185 level, just slight underneath 186. I think that's the best rejection area. If it squeezes in that top end of the gap, watch underneath 188. Okay. So again, same type of chart. All the indices are moving very nicely together. If it can push up into there, form a lower high, form some type of head and shoulders, then I'll be watching that right there. Okay. To retest back down into the 178 and 177 area. Okay. Really tight range right here. We did catch that little scalp like I showed you off of IWM, and the rationale was that it was oversold. We were coming to the end of the market. I primarily knew that we were probably going to have shorts exiting their positions and then initiate a little squeeze off of that nice demand there at 180.50. All right. Let's go into a couple of names I'm still watching, which I didn't get. I actually love this because didn't get much momentum to the downside on Apple other than a nice little scalp for $4. Okay. But that trade idea that I talked about on our Stock Sermon Sundays gap down and form that nice bear flag. So if I can still get a nice potential entry on Apple back up here and form a higher, lower high and start seeing some weakness, I'm really looking at that bottom end level if the market stays weak for Apple to get down into that 185 184 area. Okay, so I'm watching Apple again, still underneath 198, 199. Okay, 198, 199. If it can fill that gap, I like it a little bit more. Watch for weakness, right? Trade the price action. All right. If you don't know what that means you need, to continue practicing, watching the market, get involved in some type of community somewhere so you can watch the price action. That means how the candles are moving at those specific levels. Okay. All right. Let's go into NVIDIA, everyone's big play here, which was really, really nice. I missed my entry on NVIDIA because it happened so quick off open. And I'm usually pretty good at scalping these, and I signaled it, but I was looking at NVIDIA pressing up right off that 5-minute open. And that candle right there, I was watching that top wick get a little bit weak as SPY was pushing down, right? So I knew at any moment, if we open that next candle lower underneath that 99 level, we're probably going to start pressing back underneath that cross of the VWAP and 9 EMA. There's that failure to come higher right there. And that was the ideal entry or either top ticket up here. Okay. And then there was that break of the low. We continued down to our 95 target. And then we formed a little bear flag here, found some support at 95 and reclaimed back above. The level you want to watch tomorrow is kind of this resistance here around kind of just slightly underneath 97. Okay. Saw a little bit here, broke down. We want to watch that 97 on NVIDIA. I would love it higher for another rejection. And here's how the trade idea I would really love, which I was watching for today, but just couldn't get that push up into that gap like that. Okay. That's what I was really looking for, something like that. Okay. Form a little bit of a lower high, maybe a head and shoulders and start coming back down, but just couldn't get up high enough. So I want to watch that NVIDIA is extremely weak. The higher it pushes, the more I like it for puts. Down here, might want to just consider scalping. My final level for NVIDIA to continue to the downside is roughly around this 92 to 90 level. Okay. That's kind of my final target. So the bigger the push up, maybe it's Tesla earnings, maybe it's PMI, but push up into that level one more time and then continue down like that. That'd be the ideal trade. It's just slightly underneath 100, or if we can get a push back up into that 103 level is where I would add a little bit heavier into the put side. Okay. Remember, we still need that NVIDIA to get above that 107 to really squeeze. So it's got to get up here to really get into the, hey, NVIDIA is going to squeeze higher this week. Right? If you have long calls on NVIDIA and you're trading it and you want to take a swing trade like out into the summer, out into August, that's great. This is a great ad opportunity, right? But right now, I don't feel comfortable swing trading anything. I'm comfortable day trading because every day is something new, right? So I'd rather just go cash into the next day, reassess, and continue trading and just buy the dip on respective shares and just continue that way. All right. Let's go to Palantir. Beautiful trade today on Palantir. Top tick this. Showed you earlier in the video right there on that 97 as the market was getting weaker. Pushed right up into that zone. Saw a top wick step in on my 5-minute confirmation right there. Okay. Started adding on this next candle. Added a little bit more right there and then just started going. All right. And we caught pretty much this whole move. Right? Caught this whole move down to 91. That was my exit right there. All right. So beautiful trade. I think Palantir, based off of that type of reaction, right? We could see a little bit lower. My final target of Palantir would be down into 85. If this does turn into some type of maybe head and shoulders retest of the neckline and then continue lower. All right. So I'm going to be watching Palantir underneath 94, which is now this rejection zone that we failed underneath. So fail underneath, retest, and the trade idea looks something like that. All right. Google has earnings this week. Contracts a little bit on the pricier side. GE has earnings in the morning. We'll see how that reacts. Tesla earnings after hours tomorrow, Tuesday. All the semiconductors fairly weak right now. AMD, just watching underneath the 89 or 90. If it can pop back under there, I like it a little bit better. AMD is a little bit more volatile, in my opinion, which some people are like, more volatile in NVIDIA. Yeah. Sometimes AMD just goes how it wants to go. So the chart that I really like that I think can add a lot of value is this AVGO Broadcom on the downside as well. Okay, so if we can form a lower high here and we can get the market moving in that, break of 510 again, or failure of SPY, something like that, we can push up here, start to find a lower high, get accelerated to the downside. I think we can retest somewhere around 150. Now, I don't know if it's going to happen this week. I think we need a little bit of help as the market is, just every day doing something different. Okay. Let's go to some positives really quick, and then I'll get you out of here. Some positives. Let's look at that. Netflix still running. Netflix still forming higher lows there, not really necessarily affected by the tariffs. We've got Dollar General, okay, still moving to the upside here, starting to get stuck just underneath this previous resistance at 96, but very nice bull flag off of there. I talked about that on my Stark Sermon Sunday, so you can go and skip all the way to the end, and I'll talk about Dollar General, Dollar Tree, beautiful charts for the upside with some gap fills you can see there. All right, there's a trade idea. Nice hammer candle on a weekly for Nike. Nice bullish momentum there. So Nike still looks good. Nice move. I like this consolidation down here for now. Nike's Nike. So if you want to just buy shares, or if you want to short-term trade it, as you can see, it's still in a downtrend. So it could pop, then fade back down, pop, then fade back down. And we'll get a little bit more confirmation. But I do like this hammer candle on a weekly. And it's right in that zone of 53 to 55. All right. So Nike holding up nice there. I think it has earnings coming up at some point. All right. Eli Lilly, still watching that for this gap fill here. If it can pop up back a little bit higher, might consider it. Contracts are pricey, so I'm just going to stay away from it right now. But if I can get a pop higher, contracts can be a little bit cheaper. Maybe we can get a gap fill down underneath that $800. All right. Merck earnings this week. And then finally, we see crypto. This is what I was talking about. This nice reversal off of 74, 75. And then a nice bounce there for a nice potential bullish reversal and the next takeoff if we get back above that 91 to 92,000 level. All right. So Bitcoin, a lot of rotation, people frustrated with the stock market, and we could get that, next leg up if Bitcoin runs into the summer, the next leg higher. All right. So keep an eye on crypto, holding up very nicely compared to the stock market. Okay. If you're in, awesome. MicroStrategy kind of getting stuck here at this 330, 320 level. They did buy a hefty amount of Bitcoin, but I'm still trading the charts, still forming higher lows. Nice double bottom here. Right, could just be a pullback, and MicroStrategy could be ready to kind of break out like that if Bitcoin starts to take off. All right, nice little bull flag consolidation. If it fails back underneath, we could see the bottom end of the range again. All right, so we'll keep abreast about those things, and I think that's it. That's all I have for you. Thank you all so much. As always, a little bit of midweek update on Monday afternoon for the rest of the week. Continue to follow, share this video out or any other videos in the channel with anyone that you feel needs to learn this skill set or wants to be informed. Make sure you check those links down below. Join Leverage University. Check out some of the affiliate links that support the channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.